Welcome to the Digital Day podcast brought to you by Bailiwick Express and the JEP. In this episode, James Jeune speaks to Digital Jersey CEO Tony Moretta.
For those who are listening who perhaps aren't as familiar with what Digital Jersey actually does, can you just recap, certainly in the last 10 years, what the main aims have been?
Yeah, as you say, Digital Jersey was set up about 10 years ago. I've not been there for all of that time, but it was set up originally following the 2008 financial crisis and the events after that. It was set up originally as part of diversifying the economy away from obviously a dependency on finance, tourism, agriculture, and really looking to see what was happening in the world. And I think also at that point, government and JT were investing in the fibre network. And so really it was there to grow the digital sector of the economy. I think one of the key things that has changed is we've realised that digital is not just about its separate part of the economy, but the importance of making sure that all parts of the economy and society become better users of technology, better users of digital, because that helps quality of life, people's incomes, people's work experiences, and as I said, productivity is really key in the economy now.
And I appreciate you mentioned you haven't been there for all of them, but if you can list maybe some of the key achievements in your view over the last few years.
Yeah, I think there's some very visible achievements that people will see in terms of the hub in Grenville Street, which is constantly full of individuals, corporates, events, meetings going on, workshops, all sorts of things, become a real centre of the digital community. We've got the Digital Jersey Exchange over in Red House as well as like a mini version of the hub. We've also got the Academy, and it's been great over the last few years to see literally thousands of people go through courses and come out with new skills. So there's a lot of visible stuff like that that people will have seen. I think the growth in the digital economy in terms of new businesses that have been set up, and we have things like the startup boot camps and similar things like that. But also Jersey's been really attractive to people to come and set up their business. Because it's a great place to live, good physical connectivity, and the fact that we've got the fastest broadband speeds in the world literally really helps with that. So there's lots of things you can look at, those measures. You can look at the projects, you can look at things. We've got a digital twin of Jersey. We've been helping tourism, financial services. The growth of fintech is something that we've been working on for a long time with our partners like Jersey Finance and government and the JFSC. But the other thing I think has changed a lot is the culture. I think when I got here to Jersey, people were saying, well, actually, why are we doing digital? What are we using it for? I think with the odd exception, obviously, which you always get, people now accept the role of digital, the role of technology in the economy, in their lives, and really see the advantages. And I think COVID was a big part of that. People saw that technology enabled a lot of Jersey to carry on as normal, whether that was businesses carrying on, people working from home, kids doing their schoolwork, people being entertained, talking to each other online. Things like that can come along, and it's very difficult to talk about the silver lining of a pandemic, but I think people appreciated what we have and the technology we have to use in Jersey.
Can we talk about numbers and certainly how it's grown over the years, or do we know roughly how many businesses?
Well, I mean, it's interesting looking at the digital sector, because for those people that follow Statistics Jersey and how government look at it, I think we're still a bit behind in tracking the digital sector compared with looking at tourism and financial services. To be fair, that is a challenge around the world, because if you look even at the UK, on one of our nearest neighbours, you see that they will look at the economy, they'll look at reports of digital economy, but the old-fashioned way perhaps of looking at how you class businesses would class Amazon as a retailer and Facebook as an advertising company and Monzo as a bank. But a few years ago we had TechNation, who used to do an annual survey of the UK's digital economy, and they came in and did some research in Jersey and identified that the digital sector of the economy, and that's not including people in technology roles in other companies like yourselves, banks, accountancy firms and things like that. The digital sector, standalone digital sector, was already about the same economic value as tourism. And I think it's important to look at things like that. You know, we all know there will still be people who stand up and talk about the three pillars of the Jersey economy being financial services, tourism and agriculture. But actually agriculture is about 1% of the economy. Don't get me wrong, still an essential part of the economy. But the fact that digital is already up there with tourism, I think is a strong message to send people. And as I said before, the fact that having a strong digital sector is not just a sort of vertical in the economy, but works horizontally across every sector. I mean, can you think of a business now that doesn't use technology and is the better for it?
You mentioned fintech, perhaps one of the biggest. I don't know what advances you maybe see, at least in the next 5 to 10 years.
So fintech's been really interesting. I think we've seen a huge acceleration from maybe not that many years ago. A lot of people were questioning the role of technology, and interesting enough, a lot of people were worried that if we introduce technology, maybe some jobs will go, and my reply always used to be yes, and if we don't, maybe all of them will go, because technology is about remaining competitive. As an offshore jurisdiction, we have huge costs of compliance as a way of doing business. That is time consuming, it needs resources, and it's very hard to find the people to do it and find the skills. But what I've seen in the last few years is, you know, the work we do with Jersey Finance, you know, they've really taken to working with their members on the role of technology. If I look at government, you know, we talk about open finance strategies, and you see about government looking at the technology aspects of things, simple things like getting credit cards and the data where we need to be connected up to the rest of the world. And one of the real pleasures for me has been being able to see, you know, regulators are sometimes a bit slow to adapt to these things, but the Jersey Financial Services Commission has set up an innovation unit, which I'm really pleased that we helped them set up. We seconded one of the Digital Jersey team to help them set that up, but they've now set that up. They have a team in place, and I think Jersey is in a really strong position, not only in terms of using technology in the financial services sector, but attracting companies who can base themselves in Jersey, not only get access to the technology, but get access to a fintech-friendly regulator and government and industry.
So when people say AI, for example, is going to take all of our jobs, that sounds like a bit of a misconception then.
I think it definitely is. I think it's very important to be straight with people about that. There are always pros and cons with technology whenever it comes in. And if you look at larger countries, technology will, you know, there will be some areas that lose jobs, some areas that gain jobs out of technology. I think Jersey's in quite a unique position. When you think about it, we want sustainable economic growth. You know, we now have a Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. We get that. Sustainability in Jersey is not just about net zero. It's about how do we preserve what we love about the island? How do we control immigration? How do we address the costs of housing and things like that, but still have a strong economy? So it feels like very much a Jersey solution to be able to do more work from less people. And of course here, as I often say, AI might get rid of jobs, but it will get rid of jobs that we can't fill anyway. And I think also with AI, and it's been the same with technology. Someone said to me a few years ago when Lotus 123, you know, the first electronic spreadsheet came out, everyone said, oh, we won't need many accountants. Have you noticed a lot fewer accountants in Jersey? What it does is it replaces parts of people's jobs, and done correctly, it replaces maybe the parts of people's jobs that they don't enjoy as much. It enables people to take a higher value role within their organization. That helps the organization. It helps the individual. You know, we do have to invest in giving them the skills to use the technology, but those individuals can earn more, pay more taxes. So there's a real win-win around the use of technology. What I would say to those people who are critical, though, is I would not want to see what a Jersey of the future would look like if we didn't adopt technology, because the rest of the world is, and we will just become less and less competitive as a jurisdiction if we don't as well.
And we can get into that because you mentioned not just net zero. I do want to ask what areas you're collaborating with government on at the moment and have been.
Yeah, I mean, what's really interesting with government, and we only had a discussion a couple of days ago with our ministers, Kirsten Morell and Alex Curtis as the Assistant Minister for Economic Development. And what I've been really pleased about is that they don't just want to look at the economic growth side. They are really supportive of a research and development push for Digital Jersey. One of the things we lose out on as a small jurisdiction is we don't have a university, and everyone thinks about the teaching element of that, but actually universities do a lot in terms of research and development. We don't have the big tech firms, obviously, so it's really important that Jersey doesn't miss out, and we really use Jersey as a place where you can research and develop technology that will work really well for us, whether that is coming up with innovative solutions to problems ourselves, or looking at what is happening around the world and saying, how do we take that technology? And that's why we're focusing on Impact Jersey, to see how technology can help solve our big challenges, whether they're economic, social, environmental, but also, you have seen, we've talked for a number of years about this, and we're going to be doing more of it. How is Jersey used as a sandbox? I think Jersey is really a really powerful place, very well networked, literally 45 square miles. So, everyone can have access to everyone else. People can get in front of regulators, tech firms, everyone else. Jersey should be a really good place to do research and development. And for example, we've been talking about agriculture. Wouldn't it be great if we had well-paid jobs in research and development about the future of agriculture? Agri-tech as it's called. There's huge opportunities for Jersey, and I think it's sort of, as we say, and we should know here in Jersey more than most places, a rising tide lifts all boats. I think the more we can really embrace technology across the whole of the economy, it's going to benefit everyone.
We were having a bit of a joke before we started, but it is almost a year now since the Estonian ambassador came over to visit. I mean, why look to Estonia? Can you talk about why they have advances there in digital potentially we could benefit from?
Yes, I mean, as a small island, I think one of the advantages we have, if we take it, is that we don't have to always copy the UK, for example. And the UK is good at some things, but not so great at others. And digital government is one of those. We should be able to look around the world and take, and quite frankly, steal, copy and paste the best ideas. Estonia has always struck me as a really strong example about how smaller countries can be much better at digital government. If you look at Estonia, the fact everyone has a digital ID, things like 98% of prescriptions are digital, some great stat. It's obviously a lot easier to do it in a country of 1.2 million than a country of 66 million. So looking at a small country, very technologically advanced in terms of digital government is being a great example for us to follow. Also, they've got a very strong economy. I mean, Skype, which is now what we all use in Microsoft Teams, is because Microsoft bought Skype a number of years ago. Skype was an Estonian company. TransferWise, now Wise is an Estonian company. Lots of fintechs, lots of software businesses. And I do think we can also learn there about how, as a small country, you're not going to develop solutions just for your own internal market. You're going to focus on export. And we have some great companies in Jersey that are selling software around the world incredibly successfully. Pinpoint around HR software and recruitment, Risk Screen, which is looking at RegTech, AML, KYC type technology. There are some great examples, and we need to do more of that. Now, what that means is making sure we have the people who are skilled enough to set up these companies, work for these companies, and it's been great. Again, another example of where we work closely with government is on an export strategy. As a small place, we need to be looking globally, not just to learn lessons, but to export.
And during that visit, I do remember interviewing you about electronic IDs, having sort of a central register, I guess, and digital voting as well. I mean, realistically, how far off could Jersey be from some of those things? Certainly the voting aspect's quite interesting.
I mean, I will be honest. Amidst all the positivity, I think one of the real frustrations for me, which anyone who knows me will know I'm not backwards in talking about, is we still have quite an analogue public sector. There are still lots of things in government which I think are way, way behind the rest of the world in terms of use of technology. The example we all have is, we talk about doing tax returns online. Actually, the reality is it's an online form submission, and you press send. You don't see any of the calculations, any of the information, stuff that other places in the world have had for 10, 20 years. And then you wait for 2.5 months to get a letter in the post with some figures. So I think there are huge opportunities around government. Sadly, we've spent a lot of money with not much to show for it. I do think that is changing. I think we have a political class that understands technology more now. I think the civil service is structuring itself. For example, for the first time, government actually has a CIO. And has recruited from off Ireland somebody who can come in and hopefully really make, I think, government's digital services more user-centric. If you look at the technologies that work really well and the companies that have been really successful, it's addressing a consumer need. And I think governments have to address the sort of citizen needs as well, and not just their own internal processes. And as you say, Estonia is a great place to learn from that. I think they're very good at building foundations about everyone having a proper digital ID, government's data being sorted out. So you've got a single sort of registry of data of people's names and addresses. Estonia went so far as to make it illegal for government to ask you the same piece of information more than once. So if you told one government department a new address, they have to make sure that spreads through there. And you talk about voting. Actually, I am a supporter of digital voting at some point. However, you have to get everything else right first. It's almost the last thing you do with the digital government, because you've got to make sure that everyone trusts the technology, that it's secure, everyone's comfortable using a digital ID. You don't force everyone to use the digital side of it. And actually, funnily enough, if you look at countries like Estonia that have had digital voting for 10, 15 years, it doesn't quite have the benefit you think. A lot of people assume that it will get young people voting. The reality is older voters use it more. And that's one of the other, you talked about some of the great myths of technology. One of the myths of technology is that it's just for young people. Rubbish. We all have grandparents, parents that use iPads, like to do things online, book their holiday, do their shopping on Amazon, whatever. And I think digital is just as good for older people in the community as well as younger people.
And I appreciate we don't want to be behind in anything, but if there were perhaps some key areas that Jersey isn't tapping into yet, what would you say we should maybe look at first?
It's a really interesting question. I remember this was vocalised really well. Dara McDermott, the CEO of JT, was speaking at a chamber lunch earlier this year, and he was talking understandably, because it's a great achievement by JT that we're back to number one in the world for broadband speeds, which is pretty amazing. I don't think people appreciate here. Maybe we appreciate it when we go abroad and we think, wow, this broadband's not like I've got at home. But he said we market ourselves through Digital Jersey, through government, locate Jersey as having those broadband speeds and market ourselves as a digital island. But do we really think that when a lot of tourists come here, it feels like a digital island? And so I talk a lot about having a smart island. What does that mean? It means using technology I'm really pleased, some of the sort of small projects and sort of little victories over the years of using technology. It was great years ago when we brought in mobile parking, and it's great that mobile parking is 70 to 80% of parking. Pay cards are 20 to 30% now. That's a great example of how technology helps government, it helps individuals, is a lot more user friendly. The fact that you can get on a bus and use a contactless credit or debit card, but I'd still like something like an Uber properly here. I think we're way behind in some areas of transport and things like taxis, and we get a lot of people when they move to Jersey say, why isn't there something like that? I talk about government, your interactions with government for those people that want to do it digitally should be a lot easier, a lot more straightforward, and it's quite often the way you sell them. I had a great experience actually of using digital government when I moved house a few months ago. It wasn't really portrayed as a tell us once on the website website. It was update your details, but I was able to update my details with one form on the government website, and they actually told Social Security, they told the tax department, they told the library, oddly enough, they told my GP. I put in my registration of my electric moped and my car, and it did it once. Now, it's a good example of that. So behind the scenes, I know it's an email system sending it off to right departments, but it's an example of being user-centric, because I don't really care as a consumer what they do behind the scenes. I just want it to be easy for me. So I think things like government are there, and again, it's getting better, but there are still too many, I think, companies that don't use the basic technology of whether it's a shop keeping their opening hours up there, shops offering click and collect and services, whether it's restaurants allowing online booking, hotel things like that. I think we've seen vast improvements, but there are still lots of opportunities for businesses to use technology. And again, it's a win-win, because it helps them be more productive, especially when they have challenges of getting staff. But it helps them get more business, and it helps their customers.
And I'm glad you used the term smart island, because some people might hear that and think, flying cars and things that maybe are very, very far down the line. In terms of the next decade, immediate benefits for islanders, what do you view as being a smart island?
Interesting enough, a couple of weeks ago, Digital Jersey had a stand. I took some of the team over to a global event called Smart Cities Expo and World Congress in Barcelona. And that's where countries around the world and technology companies come together to look at, I said, called smart cities, but actually in many ways, Jersey as an island sort of shares a lot in common with cities. And what was interesting is, even before you get to the technology, people were talking about the challenges they have to solve. And it's very easy to be insular as a small island and assume that our problems are unique. But what did I hear people talking about, even in Barcelona, around the world? They were talking about housing crisis. They were talking about costs. They were talking about skills. They were talking about the need to embrace the blue economy, marine sciences and things like that. It was like being in Jersey. It was countries talking about how they were using technology to improve the life of their citizens. And I think a smart island, there are lots of different definitions. Part of a smart island is having the infrastructure. And we're really lucky there that we have the foundations already. We've got 3 4G networks. We're going to have 5G, hopefully not 3 5G networks, because that would be a bit silly, but at least 2, maybe even 1 5G network. We've got the fastest broadband in the world. So we've got the infrastructure. But a smart island really is about as much about the principles as about the technology. It is about things being joined up. It is about the data being connected up. It is about making evidence-based decisions. And that's one thing I think Jersey really needs. We're very good at anecdote-based decisions. If I look at something like the digital twin, I really wish we'd had the digital twin and had used it around the hospital siting. Because if you looked at something about, not only you can visualize what something will look like, you can look at what the impact is going to be on traffic. You can look at what the impact is going to be on public transport. You can see where people are going to move. And one of the things I'm really pleased about at the moment is government are working with us on the wind farm project to say, how do we visualize the wind farm on the digital twin? So you can actually stand anywhere in Jersey and look at the digital twin and see the view, what it will look like, because that's technology that is used around the world. I mean, our digital twin is run a company on the west coast of Norway. And they've been doing this, wind farm work simulation for years. But again, it's about using the data. We've just seen with the storm, what did government do very quickly is they put out information about the roads that were closed. How do we get that on Google Maps? How do we make sure that when somebody flips open their phone, they've got the information they need? Government have the information they need to make decisions. Citizens have that information. It's a good use of technology. It's joined up. And one thing Jersey could be really quite powerful on, that I think it's great actually to see government recognise this in their new digital economy strategy consultation, how we are open about data. We're a small place with effectively a single layer of government. We also, a lot of the infrastructure is still owned or controlled by government. we can share data for the benefit of everybody. You know, we've got all the state-owned entities. We've got Jersey Post, Jersey Telecom, States Jersey Development Company, Andium, all of these different companies working together at the moment to say, how can we come together to solve some of Jersey's problems? What data do we have? How can we share that, whether it's in the digital twin or elsewhere, just to really make Jersey run more smoothly?
Just to recap, what exactly is a digital twin and how is it used?
That's a really good point. So a digital twin, it's used in a lot of different places. I think quite often the example people read about is if you look at aircraft engines, you know, manufacturers have digital twins so they can see how those engines will react to different experiences in the real world. It's pretty amazing, actually, from a technology perspective. Every time an airliner lands anywhere around the world, it connects up and makes a massive dump of data. You know, Airbus will get information, or Boeing, you know, Rolls-Royce engines, all the information will go through about the experience of what that engine has been through, what that plane has been through, and that goes into effectively a simulator of an engine or a plane. And what we're doing it is with a whole island. So we have first of all, what might look like a video game. You've got a physically rendered graphical version of Jersey. You can zoom in, fly over it, look around. But what you can do with that sort of Jersey simulator is not only look at the physical side of it. You put a new building. You know, the planning department actually has been advanced quite a few years of having a lot of this computer modeling and data. But you can overlay things like the bus data and the traffic data. And, you know, a bit like when you look at Google Maps or Apple Maps, you see the red on the roads that show there's traffic. That's pulling in data from people's phones. So the whole point with the digital twin, you can look at electricity usage, you can look at soil quality, you can look at moisture levels, you can look at, you know, the Smart Fields project we have is sensors in the ground that see what the nitrate levels are like and things like that, and feed that information in.
Interesting. Could you use that for modelling major events as well, like the recent Storm Ciarán?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, funnily enough, we had a government approach to Digital Jersey, and it's one of the things that I really like about Digital Jersey and the great team we have there is, you know, we're funded primarily from government, but also by industry to help with the economy, economic growth, as I said, research and development. But also we act as an advisor to lots of organisations and government. And government can come to us and said, okay, so there are things we've learned about from the storm. And quite often, a bit like COVID, sometimes it takes these big events to make us realise how could we use technology to be better prepared. One of the things that struck me recently is, you might remember a big story back in April in the UK where the government tested out an alert system to 60 million mobile phones. And I remember quite vividly the last time I was in Orlando, I was walking along in a theme park, as you do in Orlando, and my phone made a really weird loud noise and vibration that I'd never recognized before. And I picked it up, looked at it, and it was telling me there was a possibility of a tornado about to hit. Now, luckily enough, it didn't happen then. But again, we might need to look at that technology. And we just had a tornado. But again, it's not just about the alert. It's about making sure that the right part of government, Met Office, whatever, has the data, and we know they have the data, are able to say there might be some severe weather coming up. How do we alert people? And again, the role of technology, we've never used technology for that, but it's a bit like before COVID, government didn't send text messages out to people. And look how many text messages it sent out to people to tell them about news conferences coming up, or new advice, lockdown, text messages for test results and things like that. There are so many different ways technology can just help join things up.
Well, aside from disaster warnings then, if there were a few areas we had to pick for technological advancement, what would you go with and why?
So there's a lot of talk about productivity in the economy, in the public sector and the private sector. So I would really like to see the public sector make the same strides as the private sector in Jersey in the use of technology. And really, technology is the only way you can both improve outcomes but also reduce costs. So I'd like to see the public sector embrace technology. I would particularly like the public sector to embrace technology in health. I'm really being disappointed over the years that we published, working with the health department at the time, 6 or 7 years ago, we published a really detailed digital health strategy. We've not implemented much of that. But again, I think the political will is there. I was very impressed that Karen Wilson, the health minister, and Alex Curtis, the assistant chief minister with the responsibility of digital, came with me. We spent a whole day only a few months ago at Southampton General Hospital specifically to look at how they use technology. And we met the chief exec and taught them how they use it. We went around wards. We looked at how they use what they call digital whiteboards. And this literally is life-saving technology. They told us about a story where, they had a control room for the hospital with a video wall. And they were using software, but their own tools to get and analyze data that was coming out of the wards. They had traffic light systems to show how busy A&E was. But they gave us an example, literally, if someone on that video wall in the center spotted something about a particular patient on a ward, and they were able to physically go down to the ward, alert the ward staff for something they hadn't noticed. There was something about the skills in that ward, and they intervened with a non-responsive patient and saved their life. We need to be using technology like that here as well. So I think the public sector, I think around things like health, and again, back to the Smart Island side of it, I would like to see organisations, public and private sector, sharing data, setting up common platforms like the digital twin, but I'm sure there'll be others coming along, to really do something that should be a lot easier to do in Jersey. 100,000 people, 45 square miles size, and our Smart Islands advisor we worked with in the past had a really great phrase about Jersey. He called us the Goldilocks Island. We're just right. We're just big enough to have the infrastructure we have, like the broadband and the fibre and the institutions, but small enough that we can be nimble and agile. We all know we're not nimble and agile. We're nowhere near as nimble and agile as we should be. Technology can really help us with that.
Thank you for listening, and thank you to our Digital Day partners, Deloitte, Digital Jersey, JEC, JT, Ports of Jersey, and System Labs.